Locker Room, with all the sports news you need, live.
Good afternoon. It's Friday afternoon. It's 5 o'clock, and welcome to a very special edition of the Locker Room, where this time it is a mental health special. I think mental health is massively important, as many folk will say as well. Today it's just myself and Graham Duffy that's hosting today. Michael's away on his holidays, I think. I'm sure he'll be back at some point. But I'm delighted to say, joined by the and how are you?
I'm good, thanks. I lost you for a moment there. It just disappeared, so I was looking at a black screen. And again, but I am good, thanks. Now you're back with me.
Sorry, I've got my lad is shouting from upstairs, so I'm all over the place just now. But yeah, so we're going to be talking about mental health and sport, which I think is massively important, as many folk would say. As usual, if you've got any comments that you'd like to make or any questions you'd like to ask, please just feel free to drop them in the live chat. You all know where we're at. We're live on Twitter, we're live on Facebook, and we're live on YouTube. Now, before we get into talking about the Changing Room project and what that kind of thing does and what you guys offer, I just asked you a wee question there, Christopher. I asked you, how are you? Now, do you think at times that we don't say that enough to friends, family, work colleagues? Very simple words. Isn't that something that we ask a lot more of?
It's a good question. I think we say it enough. We ask how we are, how we're doing all the time. It's very common, but often when we ask it, I think it's quite a passive question. We're not necessarily looking for the actual detailed, truthful answer sometimes when we ask that question. So I think sometimes it's good just to say, how are you really doing? Ask the question again, because that sometimes allows you to get a bit deeper with the person in terms of the conversation. But it's where I'm from in the far north of Scotland, people say, how you doing? And it's just always no bad yourself. And that's the kind of way that we deal with it. So I think there's always space for a bit more in our answers. So it's not nothing wrong with the question, how are we doing? But maybe the answer is what we need to think about a bit more.
So I think at times, especially for men, because women, I mean, I've heard my wife say this to her friends and that quite a lot, is like, how are you generally? How are you getting on? So I think as men, we don't do that enough. We kind of see ourselves as a bit more, it's kind of weak, saying that we're actually not that great after all.
I think there's probably a bit of a stubbornness within guys, generally speaking. It's not the case for everyone. We're all different. But we do like to put on this show of strength, however that might be for each individual. And if we're struggling, we maybe, generally speaking, tend to associate any struggles with a sense of weakness. And so if we're being open about struggles, we're perhaps worried that other people might perceive us as being weak. So I think there's a bit of a pride issue with guys there, that we want to be seen to be strong. And I think that's probably not purely down to men as well. That can be the case for women. But I think we're maybe not quite naturally as good at being open, talking about our feelings and all that sort of thing. But I have to say, and I'm sure we'll talk about this later on, but with my work with SAMH and in the Changing Room project, we actually know that once you get into it, once you create a good environment or a safe space for people, then actually guys are really good at talking and being honest about how we're feeling and if we're struggling. And if you find a place where you can have these conversations, where you set up a culture that it's comfortable and people feel there's a sense of trust, then actually the level of conversation that you can have is really good. And so I think there's a bit of truth in that. Maybe guys generally aren't that good at talking about how we're doing and if we're struggling, but also there's truth on the other side that actually that once we get into it, we can be really good at talking about our struggles as well. It's just about setting the right environment and the right culture for people to feel they can talk. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, you are the project and development manager for the Changing Room project. Can you give us a little insight into what the Changing Room project is? I actually had a look on YouTube a couple of days ago. I'll tell you about in a minute. I want to share my experience of what I saw. But you give us a little bit of a background of what the project actually is, and how many folk you actually get that come to these kind of things as well.
Yeah, so I guess I can take you back a wee bit in time. So the Changing Room as a project started in 2018. I only joined SAMH late 2017. But it was a project that was it was born because there was a need to do something around men's mental health. We know the statistics for men's mental health are quite poor, especially with issues around suicide and so on. So there's a real need to tackle men's mental health as a subject, and simply put, football is a great gateway to start the conversation. So we know that football for men in Scotland in particular is quite a prominent area of discussion. You know, it's something that a lot of guys will connect with and have experiences of. So absolutely using football as this kind of tool to have mental health conversations was ultimately the concept of the Changing Room. But we've been really fortunate, and so we are a project that's funded by the Men's Health Organisation, Movember. So I'm sure most people have heard of Movember, where every year guys will raise money for a men's health charity like Movember by growing a moustache. And so they're a massive global charity, but they're at the level where they also fund projects all across the world. And so when initially years ago now they had some money set aside, and they asked organizations to come forward with their ideas about how they could work in the area of men's mental health. And so SAMH teamed up with SPFL Trust, and at the time it was just Hibernian Football Club, and we had this concept called the Changing Room Project. The idea that we'll bring men into the football stadiums that they feel connected to, and we'll have a project that tackles men's mental health. So that was the kind of early idea with it. We got funding for that. We were successful in our bid, and so the project officially started in 2018, round about May time. So at that point, we weren't exactly sure what the project was going to look like, what the detail of it would be, but it was a pilot project. We were just wanting to learn from the work that we were going to do, and try and develop something that would be meaningful and actually could contribute to lasting behavioural change amongst guys if they were looking for a bit of mental health support. So, you know, through our early work, we developed a 12-week program, and the idea is that every week the guys will come to the stadium. Back then, it was Easter Road with Hibs, and they'll do a different activity each week. And as you go through this 12-week course, we're bringing mental health more and more to the fore. So quite early on in the course, we'll talk about football, and that'll be the icebreaker for a lot of the guys. That's where people are comfortable talking. But as we go, what we're doing, we're actually building connections. We're building trust within a group so that they get to a stage where they can feel they can talk about mental health. So within the course, there's different activities. There's things like a football quiz, a stadium tour. We do walk and talks where you go out to the pitch side, you walk around the pitch, and you take in, excuse me, you take in the surroundings of the stadium. You kind of connect with one another. You have that mental health conversation. We do walk in football. We have mental health awareness talks. We have guest speakers come in and speak to the guys. You know, we look at stigma. That's a big part of men's mental health still, and that's a key factor in what holds people back from actually talking about their mental health and how they're feeling. It's the stigma, whether that comes from themselves or society or other people around them. It's a really important topic. Also, as we go through the course, what we're doing is trying to build up the guys in terms of their resilience and their capacity to manage their mental health. And so we're kind of working towards them developing a bit of a self-care plan, you know, a kind of a team that they can use to look after themselves going forward. Because we're very clear that the Changing Room, it's a 12-week period in someone's life, and it's an important 12 weeks because we think we can make a difference within that. But just to round up this point, the reason for any success the Change Room has had, it's because of the guys that come along. You know, they're the ones that are being brave, that are taking the steps, that actually they're doing something to look after their mental health. And so we'll never say that it's going to fix anyone's problems, but we do believe it can make a really good difference. And so I think that's been evidenced over the years with the guys. So we've kind of grown from this project that was just getting tested out at Hibs back in 2018. We soon started working with Hearts and their charity, Big Hearts, after that. And in 2020, we got further funding from Movember to then scale the project and work across lots of different clubs in Scotland. So we're as far east as Aberdeen at the moment and as far west as Greenock Morton. So covering a lot of Scotland, which is really great.
That was the other question I was going to ask you. Are other clubs getting involved in this as well? Because you've obviously mentioned Hibs, you've mentioned Hearts. Are there other clubs getting involved in this as well, I take it?
Yeah, so we partner with quite a few clubs. I would say right now we're working with between 15 and 20 clubs. And we do that by working with the kind of associated charity of each club. So, for instance, in Edinburgh, it's Hibernian Community Foundation. That's the official charity of Hibs. Big Hearts Community Trust, the charity of Hearts. I could go on and on, name them. Aberdeen Community Trust, that they obviously work with Aberdeen. So every kind of club's got their associated charity, and we work with them and their staff. We train up their coaches so that now they can go and deliver this 12-week program to the guys in their community that are looking out for a bit of support. So it's been really good to see the project grow, and I think we've got a 12-week model that can be replicated in different places. It's not necessarily about where it happens; it's about how it happens and how the guys deliver the course and how the guys come along and take part and give a bit of themselves and share their own story. So really good to see it expanding, reaching out into different communities. And while each part of Scotland, they face kind of different issues in terms of demographics and industry and all that sort of thing, we all have mental health, and so we're all open and susceptible to the challenges that it might bring us. So
Well, we've got our first question. Are there any specific challenges to accessing sports as a result of mental illness?
I think so. There can be. So I'm in SAMH. I'm part of the physical activity and sport team, and while the change room as a project isn't necessarily about doing sport, whether that's football, we kind of use the theme, the environment of sport to talk and have conversations. We know that actually being physically active is really important to how some people can manage themselves. But I think your question there relates to, are there barriers because to participating in sport because of mental health? And yeah, absolutely, there can be. So I think often if we're struggling with our mental health, one of the things that we'll maybe do is we'll isolate ourselves and we'll push ourselves away from things. And so if somebody was a huge lover of football that loved to be active and play football, but their mental health got to a really bad place, it's logical to think that they actually might stop enjoying the things they used to love, and so they might not take up football and not do that as much. So that can definitely be a challenge that presents itself. I suppose it depends as well what kind of level people are playing at. If somebody's playing at a really elite high level and they disclose their mental health struggles, that might be held against them wrongly. That shouldn't be the case. They should be getting supported if they're being open about their mental health. But yeah, it just depends on the situation. Each context is different, I suppose. And somebody's mental health challenges can be very different, because I could also say that somebody's mental health challenge, that might be the thing that drives them to participate in sport, because we know that people often think, I need to do something here, I need to get out, I need to connect with people, I need to be active. So it's important that we don't always think of the barriers that maybe come along with mental health. Mental health often gives you opportunities, and it's about how you tackle those opportunities, how you face up to them. And so there's that kind of positive outlook as well, I would say.
The guys that come to the project, do they range in ages? Are they young guys? Are they older guys? Or is there any specific kind of age range that these guys come?
Yeah, so initially the project is the project right now for men is men in their middle years. So that's 30 to 64. So that's quite a broad age range. You know, you can imagine you've got guys within that are still finding their way in their careers, and then you've got guys that are maybe at the upper end of their careers or might even have retired. And so you've got total different experiences. You have new fathers, you have granddads within that kind of age range. And I think that's one of the things that actually makes the project work, is that you're getting guys from a whole plethora of different ages and experiences, where actually they're able to bring what they've experienced to the table, and that is often really helpful to other guys. So while there's a kind of an emphasis on the talking part with mental health, that or a program like the Change Room, the expectation is that people are going to talk. Much of the learning is just done through listening and hearing the other guys and their experiences, and that can be really valuable and important. So that's the age range there that we're operating with. I should also mention at this point, we now do a change room for women. So we've kind of trialed that in its early stages at both Hearts and Hibs in Edinburgh. They've joined forces to provide a change room for young women course. And we're also now delivering the change room for women in Paisley with St Mirren. So we know that women's mental health is just as important as men's mental health, and we want to provide that service for them. But also there's a demand for it. People were saying, we would love to do this. We would love to take part in a change room for women. So we want to recognise that and absolutely say that we're fully behind that too. So it's been good to be able to deliver some courses for women too now.
Yeah, that's absolutely fantastic. I mean, I actually was watching YouTube yesterday and I saw a couple of things about the changing room. And it was basically two guys talking about their experiences. And one of them was actually quite emotional watching it. It was, I don't know how old he was, must have been maybe 40 or something.
Okay.
But he talked about the fact that, he said a lot of struggles and stuff. And he talked about the fact that, he was feeling very suicidal. And he basically said the change room basically has changed his life, which is incredible, because you kind of think that, I mean, I've heard a lot of folks say, football's just a game, but it's not. Football does mean a lot to other folk. Like, I've watched football all my life, and there's been times where I've thought, it's actually helped me through times as well, where it's like, you get a couple of hours release, just to get away from whatever it is you're going through, just to play a couple of hours, to get away from that, part of your life for a bit. Listen to that story that the guy said was actually very emotional.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you there. And I think football forms such a key fabric of people's lives, especially here in Scotland. Like, we're a massive football nation. It's not always reflected in the results on the field, I suppose, as the national team, but we love our football. And actually it's something that unites more than divides. I think it gets a bad press a lot of the time, football in Scotland, but it's so important to people's lives. And I think we saw a bit of that in lockdown when the games stopped and you couldn't get into the stadiums and stuff. And I think it affected people in a lot of different ways, that there was this kind of key part of their life that was missing. And so I think it's really important. I've often said with the changing room, one of the reasons that I think it can have a good impact is because of the environment that it takes place in. It takes place in the football stadiums that the guys are used to going to. It's a place that they feel comfortable. So if you consider that, take Easter Road, about a 20,000 seater stadium, every second week, there's between 10 and 20,000 somewhere guys coming along to that. And during that 90 minutes and even before and after, they'll let out, all the guys in the stadium will let out a whole range of emotions, whether it's joy, like frustration, anger, and who knows what they might have been going through that week. And coming to the football it's a chance for them to let out the emotions that they've maybe kept up, they've not released. And so it makes sense, therefore, that when they come to a project like the change room that's taking place in the same space, the football stadium, it makes sense then that they're able to go and talk freely and openly about the things that have been bothering them, that they want to get off their chest. So for me, that's the power of football. I don't think you would maybe get the same results if we tried to do that in a place where guys weren't connected to the environment. So absolutely. And I think, obviously watching that video is really good, because what it does is it tells somebody's experience, which might just be the thing that someone else needs to hear. It might be the encouragement to go to the change room. And often we don't want to maybe go to a group that's about mental health because of how other people might perceive it, but also how we might perceive ourselves for admitting that we maybe need to go to something and talk about mental health. So yeah, absolutely. Power of football is a massive thing for us.
I mean, what I found interesting was, in fact, and he did use this word as well, when he was talking about it, he said that men sometimes talk about emotions because it is felt as weak, but it's not. And I think I've kind of fallen into that trap as well at times, is what I've thought to myself, if something's bugging me, I won't say it because it's like, I'll just get on with it. But you know what? At times, the support's there. You've got to use it. I mean, the fact that the people that come to this project, are they actually now finding they've got friendships out of this as well? Not just a safe place, but they're actually making friends in this as well?
Yeah, no, that's a really important part of it. So, there's the whole peer element that comes to the fore. The fact that these guys they become peers to begin with. They're strangers; they don't really know each other. But then they come into this course, and then they share a connection. So the shared connection is not just the kind of love of football or their team that they're supporting, but actually it's the main thing is the mental health experiences. So quite often, guys they'll come along to a course not knowing what to expect. They maybe think that they're going to have to just sit around a table and talk about all the things that are bothering them. That might be the expectation, but the reality is that they're coming there and thinking, I'm the only guy that's feeling like this right now, and nobody knows how I feel. That's a very common emotion or kind of statement that the guys make, or they make in hindsight. But what they actually discover is actually, I'm not alone. There's a lot of guys here. Like you said, the support is out there. It's a case of tapping into it. So the course allows guys to connect with one another. And we've found that the relationships, the friendships that start within the change room, they tend to last after that, which is a really significant thing. And a lot of the guys will talk about how they know further down the road, if they're struggling, that they've got a network or they've got people that they can go to and trust. And I don't think you can underestimate that, because when that's not there before, that's hard, because we know that for your mental health, for your mental well-being, in order to manage it well and to look after it, connections, relationships, they're one of the most important things. So when the guys come along to the course and establish meaningful relationships and friendships that are built on a shared experience, and then they know that they can take that forward, that's really powerful. And I think that's been, for me, from a kind of program manager point of view, to see that kind of form and then last has been one of the kind of greatest joys of being involved with the changing room.
Are you guys who run this program seeing differences in these folk that come to this now? They maybe at first they maybe weren't confident enough to say how they're feeling, but now they're actually opening up a lot more. Are you guys seeing that? Yeah,
we see it. And it's a 12-week program, so 12 weeks is 3 months. It's not a long period of time in the grand scheme of things. Although maybe when you're in it, it can feel quite long. But we're seeing within weeks, you start to notice a bit of a change in the guys, about how they become comfortable in the environment and how they start to have a laugh with one another. But in terms of the longer term change, I think we've seen improvements in life satisfaction, in mental well-being, and in social support. So these 3 things that I've just mentioned, life satisfaction, mental well-being, social support, these are the factors that the change room as a project is evaluated against. So the teams that do the evaluation for the project to determine how effective it is, when they've been doing that evaluation process, they've found that actually we're seeing significant increases in all of these 3 areas. So it's good that we can see it and we can testify to the difference the program makes, but also the data is there to back up the impact of the program. So that's really exciting for us. But I think, one of the best things for me is when somebody tells me about the difference that the program's made for them, that they've gained confidence, and that's allowed them to go out and maybe look for a new job or something like that, or it's encouraged them to try and mend some difficult relationships they had in their family that they didn't feel comfortable dealing with before, or even just that they know that if they're struggling with their mental health in the future, they're going to deal with it in a way that is healthy, as opposed to a way that they might have dealt with it before that could have been quite damaging. So, we do see a change in the guys. Some of the guys just come out of their shell. They become a lot less shy, more confident, more able to talk, and it's good to really see like all the different types of personalities that we've had, because no two guys are the same that come to the change room. They've all got their own individual experiences, and they've all got their own individual strengths and qualities. And I think what the program does is it gives guys a bit of encouragement to bring those qualities out to the fore, and that's been one of the best things about the work that we've done.
So Michael knows this because I said it a lot, but around end of December last year, I decided to start a Hearts fans WhatsApp group. A lot of folk talk through Twitter, but you only got 180 characters, and I thought, well, a lot of folk talk on Twitter, but you can't see what you want to say. So I thought I'll try and start a WhatsApp group and see if I get folk to join it. I've currently got 250 folk in it.
Wow.
Now, when I started it off, I thought this will be about basically Hearts chat and stuff, but it's actually not. We basically talk about anything and everything.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of folk in that group now who open up about things, and they know that if they're going through a hard time, they know they've got 250 of us that will back them up. And I actually found that it's been actually quite good, because I don't, I've never met these people in public, but I feel like I do know them, and they are now one big family, because everyone knows if they're having a bad day or something's not quite happy in their life or something's not quite right, they can put something in the chat. They won't be judged on it. And I'm actually seeing a lot of folk now, like you mentioned yourself about the group. People are coming out of the shell now, and it's actually really good to see.
Yeah, I mean, that's amazing. That's 250 folk in a WhatsApp group sounds like a bit of a big undertaking. So credit to you.
It's hard work. I'm not going to lie, because that group chat never stops. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, hard work, but good work. That's the important part. Worthwhile, and I think that's a really important point. For some people, actually, they might not need a 12-week program. Now, if somebody's feeling I don't need a 12-week program, but I'm interested, I would still say sign up to the change room, because it's a good experience. Good, even if you're not struggling, I think it's good to learn about mental health and to get an appreciation for other people's experiences. But for some people, actually, what they might need is a WhatsApp group, just a place to connect with people, have that kind of simple conversation, get a bit of advice, throw a question out there. The main thing within that is if you've got a kind of good culture within that group where people feel that they can be open and they know they're going to get a positive, supportive response, then that's invaluable. It's hard to put a value on that. Like it's really significant. So that sounds fantastic.
It is. I mean, I've always said to folk when they join it, there's never any pressure to talk. If you don't want to talk, that's fine. You don't have to say anything. Yeah. But you do know that if you ever want or need anyone to talk to, then you've got loads of us here to listen to you. Yeah. And it has actually. I've had a lot of really good feedback from a lot of folk who said, actually, this group's actually helped me, which is the best thing I could ever hear. It's not quite at your level, because what you're doing is incredible. But for me to be hearing something like that people are actually liking what I'm doing, feel massively proud of that, to be honest.
Yeah, no, you should be proud of that. And I think you've touched on something there. It's like one of the guys that took part in the change room one day, he said, I've just realized this isn't rocket science. The program's not like really in depth, like absolutely we've thought it through. It's very carefully structured, but it's on the face of it, it's quite simple. And and the same can be said for a WhatsApp group. On the face of it, it's quite simple. For us, it's about the principles that we deliver these things, whether it's managing a WhatsApp group or managing a 12-week course, whatever that is. The principles that you set are really important. And so for me, one of the key things about our work is simplicity. And this, we use football language a lot within our stuff. But people, as they say, if football's an easy game if you play it well, or if you do the simple things well. And I kind of think that's relevant for the change room. Do the simple things well, listen to people, be friendly, like ask them questions, get to know them. These are all quite simple things, but we can't underestimate the actual significance and impact that can have. So that's definitely for me in terms of how I work, doing the simple things well with consistency, trying to be genuine and trying to support people in a positive manner, that can have a really huge impact. And I think if we can stick to that, you don't go far wrong. Obviously, there will be challenges where you need to go more in depth, and absolutely, we're ready to do that as a program, as a charity. SAMH have, this is our 100th year, so we've got a lot of good experience in terms of mental health support, and that's a strong point for us. But I think we do it well because we do the simple things well. So that's a really key point for us. And I'm sure it applies within your WhatsApp group. If somebody reaches out for something, make sure he gets a response, and make sure you're pointing them in the right direction, whatever that might be.
I mean, obviously, apart from yourself, how many other folk have you got kind of in the group?
In the kind of staff team that I'm in?
Yeah,
so we've got, I suppose the changing room team's kind of got a core of 4 staff members, but it's not just us. That's really important to say. So my manager at SAMH is a guy, Robert, who's been with the company for a good number of years, really experienced in mental health and supporting people. And, the project wouldn't really be where it is without his input and his kind of leadership in that regard. I've been here for 5.5 years now at SAMH. We've also got my colleague Dougie, that he runs the Hearts Change Room project. So he's part-time, and he works kind of from the Tynecastle changing room side of things, but he also does a lot else within the team too. And then we've got a colleague, Gregor, and he came on board just a couple of years ago, and he's part of the change room team, but his work is more related to the changing room extra time, which is a kind of extension of what we've done with the changing room. The extra time program follows the 12-week course, and it's funded by the Scottish Government. So slightly different from the 12-week course and the arrangement that we have initially, but it's just another extension of how we've brought this work. So Gregor's a key part of the team too. He does work in extra time, but also just across all the general change room stuff, and then more stuff across the SAMH physical activity and sport team as well. But it's really important to mention these guys. Obviously, they're critical to what we do, but our other kind of method for delivery is that we now train up coaches, as we say, the staff from the various charities that we partner with. So we've got coaches that deliver in Montrose, in Greenock, in Aberdeen. We've trained up staff. We have a 2-day training course so that they know how to go out and deliver the change room project. And we maintain a regular relationship with them, so they can always come and talk to us if they've got questions about how do I do this, how do I deliver. There's a guy needing support, how can we do that? And we've got a coach's manual too. So everything they need to know for delivering the program is there for them. But they are totally key to the success that we have as a project in terms of reaching into different communities across Scotland. So staff that work solely on the change room, it couldn't work the way it does without our coaches across the country. And more now, we're starting to work with volunteers, guys that have gone through the course that actually then want to give back in some capacity. So we're finding roles for them to think about how they can support their change rooms at different clubs across Scotland. So there's a few of us in SAMH, but the whole change room movement, if you like, is far greater than that.
I think that sounds really positive. The fact you've got people that have been through it and they want to give back. I think that's actually great to hear. But I mean, in terms of after the 12 weeks is finished, what happens then? Because obviously, if you've got mental health, you've probably got it for life. It's not going to go away. So what happens after the 12 weeks is finished?
Well, there's a couple of points that I would make on that. So I'll come on to what happens after the 12-week course in a minute. But what I would say is we've all got mental health, whether it's good or bad or indifferent at certain points. We've all got mental health in the same way that we've all got physical health. So quite often we'll hear the words mental health, or people will talk about it and they'll think of only the mental health problems and the struggles. But actually, we've all got mental health, and it's up to us to manage it in the same way that we kind of have a responsibility to manage our physical health. It's very easy for us to think about how physically healthy am I? What am I doing to stay physically healthy or to get a bit more fit? The same applies with our mental health. It's something we can do our best to manage. And I guess there's a couple of things. So some guys will come through the course and they'll feel that their mental health is in a really good place and that it's not something they're necessarily struggling with. Other people it might be a longer journey for them. But we believe that everyone can recover from mental health challenges, and that's a really important point for us because it gives hope, and people need to have hope. If you think you can get better, then there's a better chance of making improvements for your mental health. But following the 12-week course, one of the kind of common questions is, well, what next? What comes next? So that's something that we've looked at, and I guess part of that is why we have the extra time program. So again, it's a course that covers 12 weeks, but it's only 6 sessions, and that happens at Hearts, Hibs, Aberdeen, and Rangers. So I guess geographically they've got a bigger reach into bigger populations across Scotland. So the extra time program, it gives guys the opportunity to go a bit deeper into some of the themes that maybe were raised during the 12-week course. So we look at things like purpose and identity, self-awareness, kind of rituals and routine. What can you do that's going to give your life kind of meaning and be beneficial for you? We look at confidence and resilience. So these are all subjects that come up quite a lot in the discussions throughout the course. And so when we come onto the extra time project, we want to give guys that opportunity just to discuss it in a bit more detail and also provide them with some tools that they can use to understand their mental health, but also to manage it in a way that's going to be beneficial for the long run. Because we know that if something's helpful for a 12-week period, well, then that's good, that's great. But we actually want it to have a longer term benefit. So that's what we're trying to do. I think different clubs do different things in terms of what they're offering. So some of the clubs that we partner with will have mental health drop-in sessions, and the guys kind of choose to stay connected with that. We know there's other great services out there that exist. Like Andy's Man Club is quite popular across Scotland now. So we'll tell guys, look, if you want to stay connected, there's a great opportunity for you to have conversations about mental health on a regular basis. We encourage people to get involved in different things, whether it's like walking football or getting back into sport, really important things to look at. SAMH also have a new program that's taking place in Edinburgh and Glasgow. It's called Achieving Active Lives, and that might be something that's beneficial for guys that have come through the program. It's about getting them into physical activity as a means of looking after their mental health. So there are things out there, but part of what we're trying to do is help them find the answers for themselves. You know, I mean, it has to be, it comes down to their motivation. What is it you want to do, and how can we help you to do that? So sometimes people just want to come and meet in the stadium and have a conversation, and different clubs will provide that. So we offer the 12-week course in extra time. We can't offer every type of service, but a lot of the clubs that are out there are already doing these sort of things. So if the guys have built up and developed confidence throughout the course, then they might just find something that's going to be suitable for them, but it could be quite different too.
Now, clearly, I'm enjoying my chat with Christopher too much that I've not been keeping an eye on the live comments that are coming in, and there is actually quite a few that I've just actually seen here, so apologies for that. Hashbury Stumble, one of our regular contributors. Difficult question to answer this, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Does the mental health of sports people increase as the expectations of their fans increase?
It's a good question. I think it depends on the individual. You know, within a sporting context, you get players that will thrive under pressure, and you'll get guys that will maybe crumble a wee bit. It depends on the athlete. I'm just trying to think of off the top of my head type of examples, but I'm not getting anything. But you look at the classic Messi, Ronaldo's big game players, right? So when there was bigger expectation from the fans, they would often step up. They would be the guys that are going to perform at the very top level. And that's quite often, it can be why that certain players get to the very top, is because they thrive under pressure. Look at myself, right? Not that I'm a top athlete and I've never pretended to be one, but I knew that if I was relaxed going into a game of football when I was playing a lot when I was younger, I could play really well. when I started to worry about what other people were expecting of me, my performance dropped. So, it just depends on the individual and their kind of inbuilt resilience. But that is also something that sports psychologists at a professional level can work on with athletes, and they can get them to utilize the challenges, the expectation, the fan pressure, whatever it might be, trying to harness that in a positive way to benefit their performance. So, yeah, it's a good question, and I've only just scratched the surface of an answer with that one. But yeah, it depends.
Another question we have to be stumbling again. This is a very difficult question to answer. What is at the root of those with mental health issues?
It's a good question. It's a big question. I think it's hard to answer that one succinctly because there's so many things that could affect someone's mental health. It could be difficult experiences that they've had that they've maybe not addressed. Quite often that can be a factor. It could be genetics. Sometimes if it can run in the family, certain mental health issues and challenges. It can be traumatic experiences that kind of shock and surprise you, a change in circumstances. If somebody's unexpectedly losing a job and then they've got financial issues, that causes real stress. And then stress has an adverse effect, and that can affect how someone thinks, feels, and behaves about their mental health. So it's an absolutely massive question. I don't think there's one thing at the root. I think it can be a whole range of issues or challenges or factors that can affect somebody's mental health and if the issues then come and present themselves.
Nigel G. Honey, what a great name. I love that name. A lot of men don't speak about their mental health, and this is a great way to get men to speak. And I think that's actually right. A lot of men, myself included, probably don't speak about it enough. If we've got issues, we try and think, it'll be fine, we'll get on with it. And you know what? That's not the way to be. If you've got issues, talk about them. I mean, I'm sure, I don't know, but I'm sure a lot of the folk that come to the project, they have families and stuff as well. And maybe they don't really want to talk about it with the families, but they come to this project, they're playing football, something they love to do, and they open up more to the folks that are there.
I think it's really it's worth saying that all of the guys that come to the project are just totally normal guys, like you or me or whoever else. There's nothing about them that's different. It's just that they're maybe going through a hard time mentally, or maybe they've come through a hard time mentally and they want to talk and learn a bit more about mental health. They're just totally normal people, and that's one of the things that's so great about the program. It's just normal guys coming together and having a laugh.
Yeah, it must be great. But as well, you've also talked about the fact that apart from coming and talking about their issues and stuff, they are getting fit as well, which is another great thing as well.
Well, mentally fit, maybe. It's not. There's not a huge emphasis on physical activity within the program. So most weeks are just kind of gathering in a room and having conversations and doing stuff. But there is a bit of walking football within the course, and then obviously the walk and talk element of the course is being active too. So it can sometimes be the thing that gets guys on the road to improving their fitness. I'll not name names, but I know there was a guy on the recent changing room course at one of our clubs that was in probably not his best shape with his physical health, but what the change room did is gave him the confidence to try something new. So he got involved in walking football at his local club, and he's lost about 3 stone. So it can be the thing that starts the change for people. It's not necessarily about what happens within that 12 weeks. Again, it's about that longer term impact that it can have too.
I think walking football's about my limit now, to be fair. I'm 45 this year, and I didn't think I could run the length of myself now. But I mean, honestly, what you guys are doing is incredible. And I mean, are you guys getting a sense of pride out of this as well? That people are coming out of this, people are talking about their problems. You guys obviously set this group up. Are you guys kind of feeling that you kind of achieved something you didn't think you would be able to do?
It's a good question. I mean, for me, I kind of came into the job just when it all started, so I wasn't sure. I hadn't worked in mental health before, so I had to do a lot of learning on the job. But I don't necessarily I didn't think I knew kind of what the impact would be, and I've been pleasantly surprised by it. And so it's a kind of sense of joy and service. It's a sense of joy and pride, but at the same time, we're not we're not just kind of sitting still and saying, "Oh, we've done such a great job." It's not like that at all. We know there's more to do. There's always going to be people looking for support for mental health, and we're trying to always think about, okay, what's the best way of delivering this? What do we need to look at? Is there anything we can make better? So I think that's a big thing for us, is actually trying to expand the program, thinking about what the next steps are, and trying to look forward rather than just resting on our laurels.
Ashbury Stumble comes back in again. I mistakenly thought the service was for professional sports people, not the wider public. No, I mean, it is for the wider public. I mean, how would you get in touch with the service? Is there a website or anything like that you can let us know about?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've recently kind of relaunched our changing room website. So if you go to the SAMH website, samh.org.uk, within that, there's a section about physical activity and sport, and then you can go on to the changing room page, and that will give you information, and it'll give you the opportunity to kind of express or register your interest if you're thinking about taking part. So, and obviously just follow SAMH social media channels, because we'll kind of regularly post on there some of the stuff that the project is doing and what's happening. So, that's kind of where I would point people. I would say, just on the point about, the service being for sports people and so on, or professionals, that's quite a common misconception. I think there's still a challenge there for people to for us to allow people to understand what it is we do and who it's for. So that's you're not alone in thinking that, but we are just for anybody that's looking for a bit of mental health support, and we use football. So some people will say, well, I'm not a football fan, so it's not for me. That's absolutely fine. But at the same time, we've had people that actually aren't really that keen on football, but they just want to get involved in something, and they've benefited from it as well. So we're for open to all.
Would there be any plans for doing other things, not just football, like say rugby, basketball, cricket, stuff like? Would there be any plans in the future for something like that as well?
I think it's something we've thought about. It's something we're kind of actively considering. There would be work to do within that space, absolutely. And I think as a model, the 12-week model that we have, it's effective. It's showing that. So I would hope it could be replicated in other sports. And so I guess keep your eyes open that there might be developments there in the future, hopefully.
I mean, obviously, you've not worked for that long, but what have you found since working there? What's been your kind of experiences of working at the project?
Yeah, so 5.5 years now with SAMH. The experience has been a great one. I love the job that I do. I love seeing the impact that it can have on people and the changes that can take place, really positive changes. From a selfish point of view, I've always loved football, so I love kind of being in that world, getting around the different stadiums across Scotland and seeing the different places and meeting people from different football clubs. That's a personal benefit for me, but that's not the main thing. The main thing is actually the change that it can have in somebody's life, and to think that we've played a small part in that is that's really kind of humbling, and it's something that spurs you on to keep going. So I've loved being involved in the project, and I think it's got legs to keep going and to do more.
Ashbury Stumble says, and I think you put this in the comment last week as well, actually, Ashbury, new tennis courts in Newlands Park, Glasgow, open tomorrow, which is a good thing as well. And Nigel G. Honey again comes back in. 1 in 3 will experience some mental health crisis in their lifetime, so it's more common than you think. And I think, we don't know what goes on in people's lives. We've got no idea. We see folk outside and maybe think, they look quite happy, but underneath, they're experiencing something that we can never know about. And that's why I think that the project that you guys have got is so important, where folk can actually go and, they can talk about what their experiences is. I think it was honestly a great thing you're doing, and I think you might see maybe more folk joining the project as well. If anyone's watching this show and you've obviously got issues, then you know where you can go. You can go to the Changing Your Project, and it's going to be a massive benefit.
We hope so, yeah. We'll never make promises about what it'll do for someone, but we do believe that if somebody comes and they really commit to it and they take part, we'd really hope it'd be a good thing for them. So, I appreciate the kind words. We've started. We feel like we've started getting a bit more momentum now with what we're doing. The pandemic affected everyone in different ways, and it hit us just as we were starting to plan for reaching out to more clubs, and then we kind of had to put a stop on everything for a while, move online for a bit. But we've kind of come through that now, and I feel like there's been some really good momentum that we've been building, and clubs are getting more confident delivering the program. They're seeing the impact for themselves. So yeah, things are looking good.
You kind of mentioned it at the start, but I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier. You talked about COVID. I mean, how much of a big impact did COVID have on these people that now come to the project as well? Because obviously you mentioned it earlier, the fact that, for a long time, they couldn't go out. They were probably sitting in the house. I mean, how much impact did that actually have?
It's really interesting. COVID was a shared experience, and yet it was a different experience for everyone. We've had guys coming that, for them, COVID was a terrible time, kind of isolated in a flat, maybe by themselves, and not getting out and seeing people the way they rely on. And then for other guys, they were maybe quite comfortable with it. I think in the immediate aftermath, once we started getting back to doing courses, one of the things that was quite interesting was that it was such a shared experience. It was a real talking point. So it kind of brought people together in a strange way. That's not to say it was a good thing, but there was the side of it that actually united people a little bit. But I think, the challenges have come from COVID. I think we're still learning them a wee bit. There's still some lessons to be learned in terms of what are the long-term impacts. I think in terms of physical health, it wasn't actually good for a lot of people. I went and got my kilt fitted the other day. I needed to get it resized because I've definitely put on a bit of COVID weight over the past few years. I'm not too heavy, but I'm bigger than I was. So things like that, there's different impacts out there, and I think we're still learning. It's a really interesting kind of thing that has affected everyone, and it's hard to say succinctly. I think getting back into normal life was a change for people because we got used to being at home. We got used to working on a computer screen maybe, and not being out and about. So when you were suddenly faced with this challenge of going back into public and joining programs or running things, and you were trying to at the same time manage it with social distancing and sanitizer stations and all that sort of thing, it just kind of added more challenges in a lot of ways. So I'm kind of glad we've come past that now and things are as they were, because human connection in person is so important. I don't think we can get away with that, and I think it's very hard to replicate it. So obviously you try to replicate it with like Teams calls and stuff for work, but put me in a room with other people any day. I appreciate that's not everyone's position, and this goes back to the initial point. We're all different. Our comfort zones are different. What causes us to be a bit stressed or stretched and panicked? These are different things as well. So, I think what it should do, it should maybe give us all a bit of appreciation to be a bit more compassionate with one another and to recognise that people are dealing with different challenges, and there's a need to respond to these challenges kind of a bit more specifically and tailored towards the individual too.
I mean, if, say, for example, myself or Michael or whoever it was had a friend that was obviously suffering, I mean, what would your advice be to anyone who's watching this, myself, Michael, what would your advice be to help that person that might be suffering?
It's quite a simple one. Reach out, speak to someone, find an individual, a friend, a family member, someone that you trust and you feel you can have a conversation with. If you don't feel that you're at that point, that you can have a conversation with someone that's maybe close to you, and you're really struggling, concerned about your mental health, I would encourage you to go and see your doctor. That's a challenging one for people because we don't necessarily like going to see doctors or GPs, and sometimes bad experiences can make that difficult. But it's certainly worth doing because they're there to help, and that's something we would always encourage. You can reach out to different services. SAMH obviously is an information service. We have a time for you service, which is kind of individualized, tailored service that people can get one-to-one connection with. So there's loads of different things out there that I would encourage people to do. So reach out, speak to someone. If you're feeling isolated, know that there are things out there for you. And if you're not sure what that is, get in touch with us at SAMH. We'd be happy to support. But also, I would definitely encourage people to reach out to their GP.
Ashbury Stumble says, I got to go. Good luck with everything you're doing. Thank you as always, Ashbury, for your comments. They're very much appreciated. I mean, we've got a few minutes to go, only about 10 minutes to go. You said that you do follow football. Do you have a team, or are you that bothered about having a football team? Or?
No, I do have a team, yeah. I'm a Celtic fan, lifelong Celtic fan. I'm from the far north of Scotland, basically John O'Groats, if you want to put it on a map, just away from John O'Groats. My dad was from Orkney. There was no local football team at a professional level, so he supported Celtic, so I supported Celtic, and that was how it kind of worked out for me. So when I was starting the change room project and I was based at Hibs and then at Hearts quite a lot of the time, I used to take a lot of stick and there was a lot of banter, but it's all part of it. It's good fun. It's one of the great things about the power of football is that you can connect with people regardless of things. So I don't know what's happening. I don't know if Brendan Rodgers is coming back or not. It kind of looks like he might be. So I'd be quite happy with that if he did.
Were you, I'm assuming like a lot of Celtic fans, you were disappointed that Ange Postecoglou left?
Yeah, I was. I was gutted actually because, we've been fortunate, obviously, that the last few managers we've had have all brought domestic success to some level. But the thing that I liked about Ange was the style of play. Like he pulled together a team just about all his own signings and got them playing in a really exciting brand of football. And I just saw in the 2 years that he was there, I saw real good development, and I was optimistic for what he might be able to do in Europe, whether that's getting out of the group stage in the Champions League, which is a challenge, or maybe going on a good cup run in the Europa or the Conference or something like that. I thought he had developed a team in a way that was really good. But I think the reality is, if you're any team in Scotland, if the big teams in England come calling, it's going to be very difficult to hold on to your managers, your top players, or anything like that. So I don't really grudge him for going. I think it's a great opportunity for him, and he's obviously a guy that wants to push himself at the very top level. So I hope he does well. I wish him the best for that. But if we got Brendan Rodgers back, I think he would do a good job with the squad that he's inheriting, and he's taking them straight into the group stages of the Champions League. So it could be a bit of a blessing in disguise. You just don't know. You just have to roll with it, don't you?
Well, I've seen a lot of Celtic fans saying they don't want Brendan Rodgers back because of the way he left. I assume that you don't agree with that. You would quite happily have him back.
I think it stung when he left. Don't get me wrong, but at the same time, he can't argue with what he did when he was here. He won 7 out of 7 trophies. He took us on like a 69, 70 game unbeaten streak domestically. Like a treble or a double treble that he got. Like that was totally unheard of. Like. And I'd only ever seen Celtic get 1 treble in my life before Brendan Rodgers came along. You can't argue with the results on the pitch. So, while he wasn't, maybe the style of play wasn't as exciting as Ange, then fair enough. That you're not always going to get that. But if you're wanting to win, which every football fan does, and you look at his track record at Celtic, you can't complain. And to be fair to him, he went to Leicester. He got 2 fifth-place finishes, won the FA Cup, got to the semi-final of the Conference League or something in Europe. They didn't necessarily back him in that final year, and he obviously got a bit upset or whatever, and it didn't work for him in that final season at Leicester. I think he did a pretty good job on the whole there. So there's no denying he's a good manager, and I think you'd get a good tune out of the current Celtic team. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, that is a very quick hour. I've thoroughly enjoyed talking to Christopher. Mate, thank you so much for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. As Christopher If anyone out there is struggling, you know where to go. Get in touch with SAMH. Reach out to your friends and family, because you have to talk if things aren't happening for you. You need to talk about it. We will be back tomorrow. We have another special show, because tomorrow Norway take on Scotland. So we will be on after the game to discuss, hopefully, a Scotland win. We'll be back on probably next week as well. I think I might do a special show about VAR, my 3 favourite letters. But Christopher, honestly, thank you, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure. You've talked very well, and we'll hopefully get you back on again soon. In the meantime, thank you all for your comments. Thank you all for watching, and we shall see you again next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.